You can take my ears, but you cannot take my liberty. They want to cut off my ears like the Taliban, but what they don't know is my ears can grow back like SpongeBob through budding, by the way. Hit me with your best shot, why don't you? Because if that's the best you got, you're a loser. You're such a loser, you missed so bigly, by the way. You had a big opportunity. You could have made my head blow up on TV, but you didn't do that, did you? Now my ear is going to grow back bigger and better. It will have better hearing. I will hear like an owl.
I could listen to that guy all day. That's just so great. All right, welcome back to the Full Disclosure Podcast, where we rip apart the nonsense shaping our world and your wallet. First off, big thank you to Josh Borshade for last week's show, where he uncovered some amazing wealth building hacks. There's so much more on his Instagram page. You definitely want to follow him. And you want to check out last week's show if you haven't seen it, because it's loaded with great money savings and money-making tips. Well, as you can imagine, this show is stacked today. It's absolute chaos in the world, and we're going to break it down here in a short period of time that we have together. I'm going to address my thoughts on the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, which in my opinion is the largest Secret Service security failure in the history of this country. An absolute disgrace, top to bottom. In fact, this is one of the largest stories in U.S. history, definitely in the top 5. And it's important for you to realize how close we came to civil war in this country and how this and other acts of violence are crushing the American dream. And we're going to be talking about the bigger picture here. This entire thing does not make any sense at all. And I'm going to expose what's happening in this country that is destroying our future. It's a much bigger picture than simply the attempt on Trump's life. So stay tuned. Please do the show a favor by forwarding this on. Folks, here we go.
If you have concerns about your financial future, let's be honest, the world shapes your wallet. We're taking you behind the scenes to look at what's really happening in the real world. Inform, prepare, and empower. This is the Full Disclosure Podcast with your host, John MacGregor.
Before we jump into it, don't forget to ring that bell below, hit subscribe. Love to hear your comments, feedback. Let me know what you think. Oh, and also where you are finding opportunities. Also, quick plug, my cash flow and wealth building strategy is blowing up right now in a good way. And it's not hard to figure out why, with so many people struggling and looking for cash flow. It's a dead simple strategy where I walk you through a simple process to spot winning stocks fast, how to use indicators to know when to buy or sell those stocks, and then I show you how to turn each trade, every trade, into instant cash flow. And as I've said before, it's the exact same strategy my 94-year-old father uses to generate $15,000 to $20,000 per month consistently as a hobby, and he's been doing it for the past 13 years. And of course, I use it myself to generate thousands of dollars every month in less than 30 minutes a week. So this is not day trading, folks. So if you want to watch a quick video giving you an overview, go to johnmacgregor.net/free masterclass. johnmacgregor.net/free masterclass. It'll show you everything that this strategy is. It's definitely worth a few minutes of your time. All right, so let's dive in. So let's begin with what happened on Saturday with Trump and the abysmal failure by our Secret Service. But first, just a little bit of good news. I'm confident what happened on Saturday sealed the presidency for Donald Trump. I mean, look, Biden's core problem is his weakness, right? What we saw with Trump on Saturday was strength and courage that is absolutely impossible to fake. Very few people are tested in life the way Trump was, and he passed with flying colors. I mean, you can hate Trump all you want, but what we witnessed was a guy getting shot, then demanding the Secret Service to allow him to get up and face the crowd. I mean, you have to be saying to yourself after witnessing that guy has to be our president. And I'm not even talking about all of his pro-American policies. And this could be why we're seeing a huge rally in the stock market, giving Wall Street more assurances that Trump is likely to win and implement his pro-growth agenda. I mean, what a concept, right? Pro-growth. Because we haven't heard that term in a very long time, like 3.5 years. We haven't heard that term. We do hear a lot about more taxes and more regulations, but we never hear pro-growth, right? And I don't care who you are, what side of the fence you sit on, you cannot deny the courage, the strength, the backbone that man possesses. It's unlike anything we have seen in our political circles or certainly in Washington, D.C. He took the hit, he got up, started fist pumping while screaming, "Fight on." He walked to the presidential limo and off he went to get fixed up. And the next day, what is he doing? He's out golfing. I mean, just imagine if Biden got shot in the ear like that. We wouldn't see him for months. And by the way, I've been saying for months that Trump is at risk of being assassinated. And we're going to break down why in a moment. So, folks, this was no surprise to me at all. I and millions of others are just so grateful that this wasn't more serious, if not deadly. And to me, this clearly shows divine intervention. I mean, look at everything this guy has gone through from the day he came down that escalator to announce he's running for president. They've thrown everything at him, from personal attacks, the Russian collusion lie, the dossier paid by Hillary Clinton, the PP tapes hoax. The FBI spied on his campaign. They impeached him twice, once over a phone call, and I don't even remember why they did it the second time. They indicted him 4 times, felonies, with a total of 80 charges, facing 800 years in prison for paperwork and administrative BS. Prosecutors ran for office on the notion, saying, "Elect me and I'm going to get Trump." I mean, imagine a Republican running for office saying that about Biden. The Hunter laptop lie, where 51 former high-ranking intelligence members knowingly lied when they said that laptop was Russian disinformation right before the election in order to protect Biden. The media repeatedly called him Hitler, and still do, and a fascist. They tried to bankrupt him, destroy his businesses. They sent people close to him to jail. I mean, I can go on, but the point is everything they've tried has failed. And now he's even more popular and dangerous to the left than ever. Add to that, we witnessed the worst presidential debate performance of all time. That was an utter embarrassment, which exposed so many lies and cover-ups of the mental state of Joe Biden. And that debate really did a lot of damage to the Democrat Party. Then they followed up and tried to redeem themselves with a press conference, which, let's be honest, didn't do anything to help. I think it just added to the known corruption and cover-up that we saw with our own eyes in that debate. Think about it. This guy is the leader of the free world, and they've been hiding the fact that he's in full-blown decline mentally. And by the way, we all knew Joe was in a mental decline. I mean, it was clearly obvious, but we had no idea it was this bad until we saw that debate, and they've consistently lied about it. But here you go. Listen to this.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
He's smart. He's on his game.
His mental acuity is great.
This is a very sharp president.
And the people that I've talked to say he's as sharp as a tack. He's fine.
They say he's sharp.
There's not a problem.
He was sharp.
He was sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
The president is sharp and he is tireless.
He is sharp
as ever.
And he's fine. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
His brain is good. He's still great.
He is sharp in meetings.
I believe the people who say that behind closed doors, Joe Biden remains sharp.
In meetings, Joe Biden is sharp.
He's sharp. He's fit.
There is nothing to these challenges, these suggestions that somehow he's not sharp. He's sharp as a tack.
It's just unbelievable. These people know they're lying. They know it. I just don't know how they go home and face their families, knowingly how they've cashed in all their integrity chips. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. We know they're lying. They know we know we're lying, and yet they continue to do it. So with all that the President Trump has been through, the only thing left in my mind was assassination, because they are absolutely freaked out of losing control and power, especially to Donald Trump. And I've been saying this since the early this year. In fact, I mentioned it on this show a few weeks ago that Trump's life is in danger. which tells me I do believe there is no way this gunman acted alone. He is not a lone shooter. There are other players involved with this. And I'm going to get to that in just a moment. I mean, think about it. They knew that he is so mentally lost that he can no longer handle the job of president, not caring at all, not a rip of the people and the country we live in, about the safety and well-being of all of us. They don't care. They don't care what happens to the country or the well-being of its citizens, because all they want is to win the election to maintain power. But the biggest fear they have, and this definitely includes the media, which we're going to talk about, is the fear of Trump's success as the next president. Because the last thing the left wants is for Trump and the Republicans to succeed. Period. That is the last thing. That scares the living daylights out of them, is Trump success. Because this will expose the fact that their left-wing policies are utter failures, dangerous, and disastrous, especially financially disastrous. And that goes through all facets of our society. That includes our education system, certainly our financial system, the economy, the border, crime, police, the military, energy independence, people's ability to survive economically. If Trump turns this sinking Titanic around, which I believe he can and will do, I believe it could end the Democratic Party as we know it, because it will expose all of their failures and ridiculous policy ideas that is hurting us Americans. And here's a perfect example. A nonprofit think tank called Unleash Prosperity Now just released a study titled The Trump Boom versus the Biden Bust. Using facts, folks, these are facts, clearly shows Trump beats Biden on 18 out of 20 economic metrics. The first one showing real income increased by $4,000 per year under Trump versus a decrease of $2,000 under Biden. In other words, a drop of $2,000 in personal income under Biden versus a gain of $4,000 per year under Trump per year. These are just the facts, folks. This is what the left is afraid of, Americans prospering under Trump. This report also shows that a majority of Biden's job growth are government-related jobs. We see labor productivity 10 times higher under Trump. Consumer confidence higher under Trump, but it sinks under Biden. That's consumer confidence. We all know the inflation comparisons, a massive difference between Trump and Biden. Credit card debt, illegal immigration, mortgage rates, and the list goes on. Trump's proven track record, based on conservative principles, dominates Biden and his left-wing policies. And this is what they're afraid of happening if Trump gets in office. So here's what they do.
Donald J. Trump presents a clear and present danger to our democracy.
This would be the end of America. If this is what we're going to be, this won't be a democracy. That's a monarchy. It was repugnant.
An actual Trump-led wannabe empire is the end of democracy.
A re-election of Donald Trump could mean the end of democracy.
When will America stop sleepwalking towards the end of democracy?
Right. One, can Donald Trump really win again? And two, will it really be the end of American democracy if he does? And my answer to both those questions was yes.
Increasingly, Donald Trump is turning this nation into Nazi Germany.
I hate comparing Trump to Hitler because Hitler could concentrate for more than 30 seconds.
I want to start using the word fascist.
Yeah, he's a fascist.
And tendencies, many tendencies like Adolf Hitler.
You don't have a president, as you said, talking about exterminating Latinos.
This is not a reach. I could go back and talk about Nazi Germany, and I do it without any concerns whatsoever. And if people can't start drawing the parallels, well, you're just stupid, or you have your head in the sand, or you're one of them.
The 1940s Nazi sympathizers, they were also called Make America First.
I'm sorry, is that straight out of Nazi Germany?
A historian will say what was at stake tonight and this week was the fact whether we will be a democracy in the future, whether our children will be arrested and conceivably killed. We're on the edge of a brutal authoritarian system.
1 year from now, it could be over. American democracy could be over. Donald Trump, 1 year from now, could win. When are they going to start acting like American democracy is on the line?
It's just, I don't understand. We have 4 years of proof as Trump president. None of that's ever happened. In fact, while Trump was president, there was peace around the world. We had a booming economy. The border was closed and we were energy independent. What are they talking about? And it gets even worse. This is the mainstream media and left-wing politicians condoning violence and death, mostly against Donald Trump, but us citizens as well.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized right up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Folks, it's clear that assassination attempt did not happen in a vacuum. Demonizing Trump and Republicans led to this. And Don Lemon just made me aware I'm a white man. I didn't know I was a domestic terrorist. That's a new one. So let me get this straight. Their logic is kill Trump and save the 10 million people he plans to have murdered like Hitler did when he becomes president. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. You could just see the panic. Do you ever hear any kind of that rhetoric or viewpoints from the media on the right, like Fox News or Newsmax? No, never. You never hear anything like that. I mean, just look at the events of the past few years. Look, it's often said that politics are downstream from culture. Let me say that again. Politics are downstream from culture. So what has happened to our culture over the last 8 years? The mainstream media has consistently lied about everything, always to the detriment of right-leaning individuals. Whether it's the Russia hoax, COVID claims about Brett Kavanaugh being a rapist, the Covington kids being labeled as racist, the Jussie Smollett hoax, or the misrepresentation of the very fine people on both sides, that has been completely debunked. Hunter's laptop, the dossier, every single lie targets right-leaning people. If any conservative news outlet said anything, even a fraction of what you just heard from these people, the left would lose their minds. CNN would go commercial-free 24/7, calling for an FBI and SWAT teams to raid their houses and arrest them. I mean totally serious here. And have you ever noticed that all the hate and violence and fear-mongering always comes from the left? I mean, it's absolutely disgusting that they compare Trump or anyone to Hitler, a man who killed 10 million people in a brutal, brutal manner. I mean, when you continuously say someone is a threat to this country or democracy and is no different than Hitler, I mean, does this discourage or does this encourage more people like the shooter on Saturday? Does this encourage more people to commit violence? Does this type of incendiary rhetoric justify violence? Of course it does. That's the point, and that's the purpose. And I'm not exaggerating here. If the media were honest and committed to revealing the truth, we would witness a national outcry over the decisions both made and unmade by this administration or any other administration. Instead, due to media concealment, many people are oblivious to the reality, the truth unfolding in front of them. If the media simply fulfilled their duty to report transparently and without concealment, without a left-wing agenda, our nation would be so much stronger and much, much more prosperous. And folks, if you don't see the connection between what's happening here in this country and with the media and your safety and livelihood and financial well-being, you're missing the big picture here. I mean, get this, a new report just released says a staggering 4 in 5 Americans believe the country is descending into chaos. 4 to 5. That's not good for a country. Conducted by Ipsos for Reuters, the survey took place after the assassination attempt. The poll revealed that 86% of Americans are concerned about acts of violence leading to chaos, with 56% expressing deep, deep concern. And among the 1,200 surveyed, adults aged 18 or older, 57% stated that they are extremely concerned, and 87% are completely worried that Americans will resort to violence rather than uniting peacefully to resolve disagreements. And yet the media encourages it every day and continues to stoke the flames. This is why I say the greatest threat to this country, it's not China, it's not Iran, it's not North Korea, it's our media gaslighting people every single day. But not only the media, Biden himself, who claimed to be the great uniter. Remember that? Uncle Joe, the man who came to quiet everything down. Remember that? Listen to this. These are actual tweets from our old Uncle Joe, the great uniter. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy. Donald Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat to everything a man stands for. Another one. Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy, and we cannot let him win. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, talking to folks about what's at stake in this election. Another one. Trump poses many threats to our country. The right to choose, civil rights, voting rights, and America's standing in the world. But the greatest threat he poses is to our democracy. If we lose that, we lose everything. I mean, what do these do to the minds of anyone, let alone someone angry and crazy? What do you think that does? So let me ask you, if Trump can get indicted for inciting the January 6th insurrection, arguably the worst insurrection we've ever seen, shouldn't Biden get the same for inciting Trump's attempted assassination? Remember this?
I want to speak to you tonight about the need for us to lower the temperature in our politics. And to remember, while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors. We're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we're fellow Americans. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans quote a clear and present danger to our democracy.
Is that the great uniter? Is that old Uncle Joe? Joe Biden declared in a November 7th, 2020 victory speech, quote, I sought this office to restore the soul of America. I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but to unify. But just a few days before the assassination attempt, Biden was caught saying it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. The bullseye, just a few days before the assassination. I mean, look, Saturday's attempted assassination of Donald Trump clearly highlights President Biden's destructive responsibility in this area. America is more divided along racial, ideological, cultural lines than it was 4 years ago, and it's affecting everyone's future livelihood. Chaos, discord, violence, recriminations, and now anti-Semitism have all increased radically. And instead of unifying the country, President Biden has deepened these divisions by escalating attacks on Trump and his supporters through demagoguery, policies, and even prosecution. And here's the big question, given the tragic history of the Kennedys. Why in the world did the Biden administration not insist that the independent candidate, Robert Kennedy Jr., be given Secret Service protection? Why? He's a leading candidate. It's an obvious answer. It's because his candidacy for president was a disadvantage, an obstacle to the Biden presidency. And they didn't care about his safety because it's all about power. And why would Representative Benny Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi, introduce legislation to strip away Secret Service protection for Trump? Because he's been accused of committing a ridiculous crime that never happened. This congressman basically introduced a death sentence on a former president. I mean, it's unbelievable they have stooped this low, but they don't care. Had that bill passed, that would have been confirmation to the shooter to know his actions were justified. It's unbelievable. So back to the story. There is so much more to this than a 20-year-old kid walking up to a building 130 yards away with a backpack, climbing up a building, while people standing nearby are yelling at police officers, pointing to the gunman on the roof and they do nothing. Folks, there is so much more to this story. And it's sad because I predict that nothing will come out of this. Nothing will come out of this investigation. Joe Biden said in a press conference right after this event that he will get to the bottom of this. And he's authorized a full investigation. Folks, that's just code for we will do nothing. It will be a sham investigation, and any damning evidence will be buried and kept under seal like the JFK files of his assassination by the CIA back in the 60s. And the latest I'm hearing is that they are now blaming Iran on this. That's right. Iran is at fault that a 20-year-old tried to assassinate Trump, or they're making some connection between this guy and Iran. And now you're telling me the same agency that raided Mar-a-Lago is now going to investigate the Trump assassination attempt? Are you kidding me? Only to tell us that Iran did this? Give me a break. And the head of the Secret Service, this Kimberly Cheadle, and so many others that are responsible for this, nothing will happen to them. Nothing. They'll probably get promoted. No one will be held accountable, and no one will be fired. No one ever gets fired in the Biden administration. You can get away with anything and be promoted at the same time. So this entire thing does not make sense at all. And I have a lot of questions, but doubtful they'll be answered. But I want to throw these out to you and get your thoughts. So here's the official story. A random 20-year-old kid, acting entirely alone, managed to walk within 130 yards of a presidential campaign rally with a rifle. He then climbed onto a rooftop in full view of Secret Service snipers, set up his gun, and started shooting. However, with each passing hour, this narrative makes even less sense than it initially did. Last night, for instance, CBS News reported that several Beaver County police snipers were stationed inside the building that the shooter was on. They were inside the building, folks. And now we learn that Kimberly Cheadle, the head of the Secret Service, who I'll talk about in a moment, admits that the U.S. Secret Service knew about the building, the 125 yards from President Trump, and knew it was a huge vulnerability. They knew it, but didn't station an agent there because it had a sloped roof. A sloped roof. Are you kidding me? First, she blamed the local police, right? Now, she said, quote, that building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof. And so, the decision was made to secure their building from inside. End quote. It's unbelievable. How do you protect a president who was outside when you're inside a building? And you're worried for the safety of a Secret Service officer falling off a 10-foot roof versus someone shooting our future president? You look at that roof, it's not dangerous at all. Plus, these Secret Service agents train on roofs like this. This woman shouldn't be trusted to guard a shopping mall, let alone the U.S. president. So, no officers or snipers on the roof for reasons still unexplained, even though it would have been the rational spot for them rather than inside the building. And yet it's now an uncontested fact that the shooter used the police staging area as a vantage point to shoot Donald Trump. And according to local news outlets, the security operation plan had placed each of the 3 counter snipers inside the building, looking out of windows towards the ground with none stationed on the roof. Due to a lack of manpower, they say, the men did not have spotters assigned to them, which is standard operating procedure. Maybe the excuse is that they couldn't spare one to watch the roof. Who knows? This is ridiculous. They just ran out of people? Really? Obviously, we need to know who drafted that security operation because that person should never, ever be in charge of any security operation ever, ever again. So nevertheless, roughly half an hour before the shooting started, these snipers inside the building saw the 20-year-old shooter without his rifle looking up at the roof, observing the building before he disappeared. And the one thing you'll notice is that this guy is not very smart, right? He moves slowly, clumsily, walking around for 30 minutes ahead of time, staring at the spot where he wanted to perch himself to shoot the president in full view of the police officers. In fact, his actions were so suspicious that one of the snipers inside the building took a photo of him. This story is just insane. And it gets even more bizarre. A law enforcement officer had also previously seen the shooter on the ground and called him in as a suspicious person, even with a picture of the guy. Then the shooter disappeared and they couldn't immediately find him. So they just forgot about it. So just to review, this guy was on the radar of the security forces at the rally 30 minutes before he fired the first shot. And he fired it from the very same building where the police officers were staged inside. This is just mind-blowing. He was reported as suspicious, and they had every reason to detain him at the very least and delay the rally. But it gets even worse, folks. At one point, in full view of the snipers, sitting inside the command post, the gunman took out a rangefinder, prompting police snipers to radio his command post to alert the Secret Service to the threat. But still, nobody detained the man, and nobody pulled Trump off the stage. And there's only one reason a suspicious person would be using a rangefinder right outside of a Trump rally. Look, you use a rangefinder to determine the distance from you and your target, or how far you hit your golf ball. And this guy was not carrying a golf bag, and there's no golf courses anywhere nearby. Clearly, he had a rangefinder to shoot somebody. I mean, there's no conceivable, innocent reason for a guy to be lurking around the site of a campaign rally with a rangefinder. Yet nothing was done. We then saw bystanders who noticed this guy on the roof. They were yelling at police officers, alerting them to a suspicious individual laying on the roof, and they did nothing. They ignored the alert, even though this guy had been on the radar for the last 30 minutes. Now we learn the shooter's parents called the police a few hours before the shooting, worried about their son. The folks called the police. And this just popped up a minute ago. Secret Service knew about the threat before Trump took stage at the rally. They knew it, and yet they still let him up there. Law enforcement did nothing. I mean, there's so many questions to be answered, but again, I'm afraid we will never, ever hear the truth. Why was President Trump allowed to take the stage if they had a suspicious person nearby? Why wouldn't this person be approached, searched, interrogated before they allowed President Trump to walk up on stage? Why were demands for more Secret Service agents protecting Donald Trump ignored and denied? I mean, the Trump organization has been asking for more Secret Service protection for months, and they have continually been denied. How is it possible that a guy with a gun can crawl up the side of a building, set up his rifle well in advance of the shooting, and nothing happens? Why did it take 3 minutes from the time he was targeted by the snipers for them to take him out? Why did they wait for the shooter to fire off shots first before they took him out? They could clearly see him with their scope, with a rifle, and they waited for him to fire first. It was just bizarre. And again, why were they inside the building, not on top of it, like they have done at other campaign rallies? Why did they ignore the police from the bystanders yelling, "There's a guy on the roof with a gun"? Again, why did they let Trump speak, knowing they had a suspicious person near the premises? But here's the big question that no one's asking. How did this guy know that no one would be on those buildings? How did he know that he could go up there by himself, unabated, and have a clear vantage point at Donald Trump? That's the big mystery in my mind, and makes me wonder if other people are involved in this. And look, there are no conspiracy theories. We prove that every week on this show. But there are no coincidences either. And I strongly believe this was not a coincidence. So going back to what I said earlier, everything they put Trump through from the very beginning has failed. And now their candidate, who has dementia, has managed to potentially destroy the Democrat Party. And they need Trump gone. Again, how did that shooter know or have the confidence to come to this campaign rally knowing he'd have a clear shot of Trump from the rooftop? And sadly, we will never know the answer to that question. And all of this leads the Secret Service, who utterly failed to do their job, which came within quarter of an inch of killing our future president and basically the only hope we have for saving this country. As I mentioned, the head of the Secret Service is this woman named Kimberly Cheadle, who took over the Secret Service in 2022. And prior to this, she was the director, get this, she was the director of global security at PepsiCo. PepsiCo, folks. You know, the company that makes the snacks and the sodas we drink? And to quote Elon Musk in a tweet, he said something to the effect, "Great. The person running the Secret Service, her prior job was guarding Cheetos." That's perfect. It is now known that she landed her role thanks largely to a close relationship, of course, with First Lady Jill Biden. That's right. That's all it takes to land one of the most important jobs, if not the most important job in the White House and the country. Just another Biden family affair hire. You know, when Obama was president, the director of the Secret Service resigned after a man with a knife jumped the White House fence. That's all he did. No one was hurt, and yet he was forced to resign. Compare that to what just happened. And now it's being reported that the Secretary of Homeland Security, the useless, corrupt Alejandro Mayorkas, is blocking the Secret Service director from testifying in Congress. She's being muzzled by the same guy who's opened the floodgates on our southern border and constantly lied about it. Dan Bongino, the well-known conservative podcaster, who was a Secret Service agent for, I believe, 15 years and still knows a lot of the people there, he heard from someone on the inside that the agents were told if they want to keep their job, they'll keep their mouth shut. And here we see Biden bumbling through another interview, admitting he has yet to hear from the head of the Secret Service.
Is it acceptable that you have still not heard, at least publicly, from the Secret Service director?
Oh, I've heard from him.
But have you heard from her publicly?
Publicly, I've sat down in a situation room downstairs. The Secret Service, the FBI, the national security agencies, the Homeland Security, all the major elements.
It's just pathetic. And here's what Cheadle had to say in an interview on ABC News. Check this out.
Who is most responsible for this happening?
What I would say is that the Secret Service is responsible for the protection of the former president.
So the buck stops with you?
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service. It was unacceptable, and it's something that shouldn't happen again.
The President and Homeland Security Secretary said today they had 100% confidence in you, but there are some members of Congress calling on you to resign.
I appreciate the Secretary's comments, and we're going to continue to be transparent and communicate with people.
You plan to stay on, absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
It's pathetic. I mean, does she exude any confidence just listening to her? She says the buck stops here with me, yet I'm not resigning. Then she said this whole thing was unacceptable. Unacceptable. That's the term she used for allowing the former and future president to get shot? You know when someone shows up late to work 3 days in a row? I would say that's unacceptable. When my internet goes out periodically for a few days, I would use the term unacceptable. I wouldn't use that term for an utter failure of security while the president gets shot in the head. I mean, if this was a private sector company hired to protect the president, the CEO would have been long gone, as well as other leaders and Secret Service agents with that company. They'd be gone in a flash. Yet here, no one has been held accountable and probably never will. It's just unbelievable what we've learned about the Secret Service under this woman. We know that there are diversity quotas, majority female training classes, the usual woke and DEI hiring practices that is wreaking havoc on our safety, our economy, and our country. I mean, when is the time to sound the alarm? When keeping agents off a high-risk building because it has a sloped roof? As Charlie Kirk pointed out, they're approaching the security of a future president like it's an HR problem. In my opinion, this whole thing reeks of a CIA operation. As we talked about earlier, the CIA, the FBI, the DIA, and numerous other three-letter agencies spied on Trump before the election and likely are still doing. 51 former high-ranking U.S. intelligence officials claimed Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, fully aware that it was genuine when they signed that letter. U.S. intelligence aided Clinton in pushing the Steele dossier, funded by Hillary, despite knowing it was false, to hurt Trump. These intelligence insiders understand that Trump will dismantle their strongholds if reelected, threatening their power, security clearances, and control over these influential agencies. They are scared to death of losing their power and possibly facing jail time. The last thing I'll say on this before we wrap up, it's conceivable that the CIA or other agencies could have located and groomed a lone individual with at least basic rifle skills for their own purposes. And I'll leave it there. Folks, that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. Let me know what you think on this. Remember, knowledge is power and staying informed is key to thriving in today's market. Don't forget, hit subscribe. Leave your comments below, and please share this show with others. Next week is going to be extremely explosive. Don't forget to check out my cash flow and wealth building system at johnmacgregor.net/free masterclass. johnmacgregor.net/free masterclass. It really is a game changer. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time on Full Disclosure. Take care. Happy investing. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.
Thanks for listening and supporting Full Disclosure. If you like this episode, remember to like and subscribe and follow Full Disclosure. To make a better financial plan for your future, join our Cash Flow Bootcamp, where John shows you a safe and smart way to turn your investments into a steady income stream in a fraction of your time. Learn to make money in any market. Until next time.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.